all of you guys for coming. And I'm happy to see this huge crowd here today. I mean, this is really an important annual celebration honoring Walter Hook, sort of the hometown boy here, who, you know, who left us with such a great legacy and with so much art, and who's been an inspiration for, you know, contemporary artists in Montana. And I think everyone here pretty much, I had a few pieces of history about Walter, but I'm pretty sure that everyone here knows that he was born here in Milltown, went to school here in Bonner. He continued on to Missoula County High School and to the University of Montana. I knew he was in New Mexico, but I didn't realize he had worked for the Atomic Energy Commission, is what he was doing down there. Yeah, because he also had degrees in science and math. He was a scientist, he was a mathematician, he was, you know, pretty much like a Renaissance man. When he was down there in Albuquerque, he earned a master's in art from the University of New Mexico, and then that's how he ended up chairing the department back in 1955, as he had already had his master's degree. So he came back up and he actually chaired the department here, worked in the department here at the University of Montana from 1955 to 1977. And he was a scholar and an educator and a scientist, as we've mentioned, never afraid to experiment. He had a clever wit that we all know about, and he was a true gentleman. So it's hard to find all those qualities in a person. And not to mention, he was an amazing artist. So I never met Walter Hook. I see he passed away in 1989. That's the year that I was just getting out of graduate school here at the University of Montana. But in my 3 years here in school, I did not have the opportunity to meet Walter Hook. He is one of our important grandfathers of contemporary art in the state of Montana, and so we owe him a lot. And he's, you know, he's in that same group as, you know, like Bob and Jenny DeWeese, and hi Doug. And you know, who are some of the others, like Francis Senska, and a lot of these professors that were at MSU in Bozeman at the time too, in the 1950s. And so, you know, they've left us, you know, in Rudy Audio, they're all the forerunners of contemporary art in our state, and they've left us with, you know, all of the incredible bodies of work and just incredible ideas that we can work from. So what I was kind of trying to do, so I had never met Walter, and it's been really fun to read a lot about him and to look at his work. And I thought, well, as I'm looking at the work, I'll try to identify some images or some ideas, you know, some similarities in imagery or concept that Walter and I shared. So of course, and I'm kind of going a little chronological, so this is this is a piece, this is a really early print that I made in high school, and I was 16, and I just learned the collagraph, so I was all very excited about the possibilities of textural and all that. And I used to work a lot with eggs. And as we all know, Walter has many works involving eggs. When they were in Albuquerque, they raised chickens, and so I think they had an abundance of eggs. And so that's how, I think, kind of how Walter ended up working with a lot of egg imagery, aside from the fact that it's just an absolutely perfect form. Okay, now as some of you guys know, my images are a little out of order, so I think I've arranged them. I don't think it'll be too much of a gap. Okay, so here's Custer's Last Stand, and most of these works of Walter's you're familiar with. And this piece is from 1971 also. I thought, well, we both made these egg pieces in 1971. And this piece is one of the many sort of tabletop tableaus that Walter created. And they're very surrealistic in nature. And one thing I noticed with some of these tabletop tableaus is just what an expert he was at creating these spatial qualities, like working with extreme foreground and then moving back, 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 taking the viewer back, and then we've got all this stuff happening back here. When I was arranging all these, my husband Steve said, wow, there's that Custer's Last Stand piece that created all the controversy. I said, what do you mean? And he said, well, this is one of the pieces that that the MAM installed down at the City Hall as part of their public outreach program. And in no time, they got a phone call from someone who said that they found this very offensive to Native Americans. And they were shocked. I think they missed the point. And in typical Walter fashion, I love this. Because he's got these messages in there. But yeah, it was really surprising that they got one call and maybe even two. And I think what they were offended by was just like the danger Indian crossing. I'm not totally sure. Anyway, then I'm going to go to, trying not to bore you guys. And I just am so sorry about this. Okay. So, this is, hello everyone, come and find a seat. This is the next piece. I was also looking at other egg pieces that I had done. This is much later, of course, from 2010, 2011. This is a 3-color etching that I completed working with the Matrix Press here at the University of Idaho, University of Montana. I have some stuff from University of Idaho from University of Montana. And this piece kind of references my own roots on the Montana High Line in north central Montana. I grew up in Great Falls, but I'm 4th generation, and all my grandparents homesteaded up on the Montana High Line, and so that is a place that's very special to me. And I do still have some relatives that have some of the farmland up there and stuff, and it's just such a stark and beautiful place if you've ever visited up there. Okay. And if anyone has any questions while I'm talking about these, feel free, or you can save them till the end. And this is another tabletop tableau, and there were quite a few to choose from. And I picked this one because there's just such a sense of sort of intrigue and mystery about it. I mean, it's drawing the viewer once again. He's created all this spatial stuff with this incredible foreground with these torn areas, and then taking the viewer back, back, back. He's kind of a master at doing that. This is a watercolor from 1968. He also incorporated collage with this. And if you look really closely, the collage pieces also reference a time long ago. And these are fashions for men and women that look like they're like out of the 30s or so. And I also found it interesting, the title of this is 1 Dozen Eggs. And for whatever reason, I just happened to be counting the eggs. And I don't know if somehow when this was first photographed, an egg got cut off, but I sort of think that there were only...
I think it's the shadow over there. The shadow of the 12 eggs is there.
But the egg isn't there.
No, but the shadow is.
Okay, so you think that that Walter was just kind of doing
The original is hanging in Main Hall right now.
Does it have the 12th egg on it?
No, it doesn't.
Okay. And I mean, he was very clever, with some of his titles and just incorporating these little things that would really, bring the viewer in for a closer look.
Wouldn't it be a joke on form is substance?
Yeah.
A joke on form is substance.
Yes, it would. Okay, so 3704. And then going to this piece, since it's in the same time period. So this is 2 years later when I was actually a senior in high school, and I was talking to my art teacher. I was trying to win an award in this student show. And I said, I'm trying to think of what print technique I could use. And he said, why don't you use screen printing, etching, and lithography all together? And I went, oh. So because I was just kind of learning printmaking, and I'd never really like started combining processes and everything. So that's what I did with this piece. It's called Locust Today 39. It's like a grasshopper. And what's interesting is my art teacher from high school, Jeff Walker, and growing up in Great Falls, I think Bobby alluded to this a few years ago when she was the artist. Bobby and I were classmates both in junior high and in high school. We had the same art teachers.
Idea.
Oh, you didn't? Yeah, Bobby Sue. And we kind of grew up in the sort of golden era of art in Great Falls in the 60s and 70s. So we had, like, our junior high had 5 full-time art teachers. I mean, that's just completely unheard of now. And everybody took art. Like, you would take like 2 art classes. I mean, it was just so wonderful. And then in high school, by the time I got to my senior year, I was just taking like my required senior English and a computer class and whatever. And I had like 4 periods a day in the art rooms. I was like always a lab assistant and helping and everything. But one of my teachers, Jeff Walker, I had him at Great Falls High. And when I was online messing around and I was looking up some information on Walter Hoek, and it was funny because one of the articles was from the Hockaday Museum in Kalispell. There had been a show of Walter Hoek in 2007. And at the same time, showing it exactly the same time, was my high school art teacher, Jeff Walker. I thought that's pretty interesting. And I really like that. Okay. 3. So this piece, and a lot of you guys have this celebration book, so like some of these images are out of that book. And I'm not really sure if this piece is in black and white, or if it just, got photographed that way, or if it's a watercolor or an ink wash. But it's called Osprey, and it's from 1976. And I, once again, am just marveling, in some of his works, his arrangement of composition, and then just the posture of the osprey. It's, he's capturing it like in mid-dive, and in just such a powerful way. I think we both have kind of affinity for avian species. He has a lot of birds going, and I definitely do. So I had 3684, a piece that this is a piece that I had done for a Raptors of the Rockies fundraiser. This is my osprey. It's kind of the only osprey that I've ever made, but I really had fun finding similar subjects that we had worked from, and I'm also like incorporating collage into the ground area here, and this is a dry point etching from 2008. Let's see, 684. And that's about 16 by 20, I think. 684. Then I also noticed that Walter seemed to also have kind of a connection or an attraction to the corvid species, the ravens, crows, and blackbirds and things like that, which are definitely a huge interest for me. I think that he was probably attracted to them for some of the same reasons that I am. Their cunningness and their playfulness, and they're at the top of the avian intelligence scales. They're really smart and can figure out how to undo locks and everything. And once again, I'm just amazed at some of the challenging compositions that Walter set up for himself. I just don't know that many other artists that would set up a composition like this and tackle something like that. It's just incredibly difficult. Because first of all, you're trying to give the viewer, the perspective on this pile of lumber. He's also, having to, recreate the textural qualities of the lumber, and to work with all the spatial qualities, once again taking the viewer back. And I just, I think it's just a pretty marvelous composition. And that's from 1973. Let's see, 68. Here's a corvid piece that I had in just this last fall in an exhibition I had at the Missoula Artist Shop. And it's a mixed media piece that involves intaglio and relief print, some tissue and collage pieces. It's called Remembrance from 2014. And I think that also, I've been working with, off and on with corvid species and ravens and crows and magpies and stuff for a lot of years. And I'm always interested in reading how symbolically important some of these birds are, in other cultures. And there's, many different myths and legends, and sometimes they stand for omens or, messengers of certain things, or standing for death. But they are very smart. This second raven piece I brought is called Departure, and it was part of that. It is part of a body of work that I have currently at the University of Idaho. It's a 5-person printmaking survey, and I've been drawn to this kind of stacked approach in my compositions for quite some time. And part of the reason I like printmaking is because it offers so many possibilities for the multiple image. So you can continue to print the same plate or the same image over and over in various ways. And I, flip-flop things and make stencils and work with the positive and negative. And those are all just things that I really enjoy in my work. Okay, political caucus. I love the title of this, Political Caucus. I don't think we had a year on this one by Walter, but I love the title, and it's kind of out of the, reminds me of the school of George Gogas funny titles for paintings. I also find it interesting that he has this grouping of pigeons standing along, apparently, a highway in the middle of the road. And that is a watercolor, and just a really lovely arrangement and really a nice treatment with the birds. So this is an older piece of mine from 2007. It's called Wish I May, Wish I Might. And, once I started with the kind of, mixed process, mixed media stuff way back then in my senior year of high school. And I continue to work primarily with mixed media. And so here I'm incorporating monotype, relief print, and various collage materials, and a bit of drawing. And, although my work is generally narrative in nature, like Walter's work, who is very narrative, I think that our styles and our approaches in creating that are quite different. So we're still on the bird theme. This is a little piece called Perch. It's a collograph. It is from 2009, I think. And it's about 8 inches by 12 inches. And once again, just having a lot of fun with textural possibilities and just keeping it simple.
Deb,
Yes, Carol?
I know on your collographs and stuff, like, what did you use for the ground in those leaves? Did you actually use a piece of something? And did you use actual leaves?
Yeah,
Or
you know,
just get the impressions of them or what?
yeah, one of the reasons that I was first really drawn to the colograph, back in high school is just that, they're kind of the poor man's form of printmaking because you can just work with a piece of cardboard or an old piece of mat board. So yeah, my plate is cardboard, and then I collect all kinds of things. So this is like a piece of really old textural wallpaper. These are some kind of, they're not really plastic, but they're like some kind of weird material of these leaves I found somewhere. And then, the rest of the stuff I'm creating, like the lines, drawing, I do that just with an X-Acto knife and dig into it like you would with a dry point etching, and then just pull out the little piece so that the ink can go in there and form that line. And other than that, I use a lot of, glue and gel medium, and then for the dark areas, as you guys know, you're printmakers, but sprinkling into the wet adhesive either some kind of sand or carborundum or walnut shells or something that'll hold the ink to create the black areas. So yeah, so it's just a combination of stuff that I draw and also found materials that I just keep around and collect just because I love all the textural stuff. This helix or spiral form I use a lot, and I'm just really drawn to that whole form, the continuum of life and the rotating continuous line around a fixed point. I've always really liked that. This piece I just really like a lot. And, I wish that there were more, and maybe there are, but not that I read or anything, but more information on some of these pieces. Walter was a scientist, and so this reminds me of something like very scientific. But I've always really enjoyed the incorporation of text in with images. And so he's abstracted this owl, and it's from 1964. And to me, it looks like paint and ink and whatever else. But it's just very rich and bold. And I was drawn to that image for sure. This piece I think is from 2007 or something like that. And it's from a series called Remains. And it's intaglio, monoprint, and collage. A lot of my work in the past 20 years or so has really dealt with ideas and aspects of transition and mortality and how species change and evolve, and life cycles and things like that. And I've had quite a bit of death in the last number of years, and so I always end up, being drawn to making work that somehow connects me with these passages for these people that I've lost in my life. Here's an older piece too, from 2010. And this is called Harmonic. I think this is right around the time that I had become sort of alerted to and really aware of what was happening with our honeybee populations in the United States and in the whole world. And the use of the neonicotinoids or different similar chemicals in that family that are commonly found in pesticides that people use widely. And what happens is that they are not bee friendly at all. So the bee mortality rate, it has just completely plummeted. And so then I kind of got into this bee series, this honeybee series. And there have also been other causes that have been identified, like viruses, different pathogens that have created these viruses, and habitat loss and things like that. So here's another one of these kind of stack pieces. I think this is kind of one of my earliest bee pieces. And I really enjoy the use of stencils. I cut a lot of stencils, and that is, you know, one of the simplest forms of printmaking, and I really like working that way with kids as well. Then I went on to became a little bit more elaborate. This is from 2011, and I am part of a group that do projects together every now and again. We're kind of scattered around the state, but every 2 years we are the group that creates these installations in Great Falls. It's called the Urban Art Project, the UAP, and they have this parking garage downtown, and they built in these big giant windows into this thing that were actually designed for retailers to display their work and everything, but it didn't really get used that way, and so it's become kind of an art space. So my window, I had found these incredible images of bees, you know, it's very similar. This is actually a piece of one of them, and I just blew these things up and altered them and painted back into them. So my entire 6x8 window was just this frenzy of these bees. And then I had it kind of, you know, coming into sort of, you could sort of see this destruction and deterioration kind of coming down and resulting in this kind of a black hole sort of a thing. And I also have a piece from that too. So then I had already researched, you know, had these images that I was scanning and messing around with and everything. So I just decided to do this series. And this was number 2. And then I went to, this is Hive number 3. And these are mixed media pieces with a monotype and photo collage. And they are, so this was 16 by 20, the other one was 18 by 24. And then I went to, this is called Hive Collapse. And so this was kind of on the tail end of my bee series. And it is monotype and collage. And then the last one of the bee pieces is, this piece is, yeah, this is kind of the last one. I think I'm kind of done with my bee series. And once again, just given the ability of printmaking to create multiple images, and with my whole propensity for, you know, I'm German, I sort of like ordering and arranging and everything like that. And this was in the show in the fall at the downtown at the Missoula Artist Shop. Okay, so next is, you can see a large bee piece on the right that's, you know, it's very similar to the others. And then the piece on the left I actually have a slide of. This is just an installation shot from last summer at the Terman Larison Gallery. I was doing a 2-person show with Ellen Ornitz, and her piece is in the middle, and we had made a plan to create pieces that were dealing with sort of organic life forms and and sort of our own experiences with the natural world and just how species change and evolve and stuff. The piece in the middle is Ellen's, and I'll just put a plug in for the MAM auction, which is happening tonight, because Ellen has this piece in the auction. It's a huge porcelain piece, and the title is Algae, let me see, what is it? Study of Algae. And it's just a gorgeous piece. But our work went very well together, and it was really a fun show to do, just given how we were both kind of dealing with some similar subjects. Now, one thing I haven't dealt with too much is, but I wish that I had, because I just think that they're marvelous. And I know that from those early days in Albuquerque when Walter and his wife raised these chickens and had all these eggs and everything, that he often used chickens as a subject. And, you know, and they are kind of like pigeons. I mean, he loved those pigeon studies. And they have those same kind of, you know, head bobbing kind of things, and the way they communicate and everything is just quite delightful. And there's no date on here, but I figured this is kind of an early piece because it has that kind of look about it that might be like in the 60s. And it says watercolor. And I just think that's a wonderful painting. Really fun.
He did a lot of chickens in 1955.
55?
Yeah, he had a show of them in the hallway. It was now called Hellgate High School, and I walked through it. And I had chickens at home, and I was surprised to see that he knew what a chicken was. He was my art teacher, and I was a sophomore.
Wow, lucky you, Doug. So this is more like probably from 55 or late 50s. Yeah, that's why I was surprised that was a watercolor, because the really black lines like that are hard to achieve with watercolor. And it could be some acrylic as well, because some of that's pretty opaque. Okay, but yeah, thanks for that insight. That's pretty fun to hear about. Another subject that Walter, as you know, was very excited about, cat imagery. He liked the felines. And so both in his printmaking and in his painting, he's really left us with a lot of cat studies and pieces of cats. This one is from 1965, ink and watercolor, I believe. And in one interview, I think when Walter was asked about his frequent use of cats as subject matter, he described the way that he felt that we as humans could really see ourselves in the behavior of cats with all of their foibles and quirkiness, that we could learn a lot about ourselves by looking at our cats. And he enjoyed them both as pets and as subject matter in his art. And once again, this composition is just pretty wild. You know, it's wonderfully done and just a really fun piece to look at. Some of these cats look a little, some of them have the mean faces, and yeah, it's hard
Do
to
you
say.
ever do dogs?
Not that I didn't run across any dog pieces, but I bet you.
Steve brought a dog, or Ted brought a dog.
A dog
One
piece?
dog a couple years ago.
You got
And it was done in that style.
in this style, okay.
There's another one with the dog sitting next to a pile, next to one of those wood piles with the 2x4 ends. It's another one of those perspective pieces that the dog is just sitting next to the stack of lumber.
I think the dogs got overruled by the cats. Oh dear. And I think I only ever made one or two pieces that might have had a little cat in it, but nothing really major. Let's see. I'm going to go to just do these really fast. This is a little landscape. It's made up of intaglio print fragments that I just kind of turned into a landscape. And I'm just a person that in my studio I just don't really like throwing things away or wasting, so I'm really prone to cutting things up and reusing or printing over the top of, or I'm kind of a grand recycler, of my work. And so sometimes, some sort of image or thing that I used 15 years ago might like show up in a new piece or something. And I'm really drawn to that idea of kind of recycling. And then this is another piece that kind of in the same vein. It's called Bunting. And once again, it's kind of a winter landscape. And I'm just utilizing these fragments they're just small fragments from previous prints I've made and then fitting them all together. Is it dark enough in here for you guys to see these? I see we have sun coming out. Okay, we're kind of nearing the end here. Then I kind of, also in the last few years, I've kind of had this seed pod series. And I'm just kind of drawn, to, once again, the sort of forms and textures of a lot of like pods and nests. I'm going to show some nest pieces, and just the whole idea of them is, serving as shelter and container and stuff like that. This is 20 by 26 mixed media relief and monotype and collage.
Bev, is that piece sitting on top of something, so you have that shadow over there? Just a shadow, or is that part of it?
This shadow right here
Yeah.
is created because the piece is kind of bowing up.
Okay.
It's on very thick paper. And then just continuing that, here's one of the larger pod pieces that was in the Terman Larison show last summer with Ellen. And, I'm also utilizing these these found photos and then altering and going back in with graphite and just really, drawing back into them. And then once again, just, how much I love working like with these positive negative reversals and just the ordering and arrangement. And then let me show you one more from the pod series, and I'm kind of done with this for the time being too. 32, 79. And once again, I apologize for the having to do these one at a time, because what happened is the order that I sent these to Al, he wasn't able to keep them in that order, so I've had to kind of find them. And then here's the last one of that pod series called, I just numbered them. I think it's called 27C or something like that. And I actually, on some of these, I actually drew the pods and, I really like drawing a lot. And I've been doing a little bit more, incorporating more drawing into my prints and into my mixed media works, and just trying to keep practiced with my drawing. Here's the piece that was to the left of Ellen's piece at the Terman Larison Gallery last summer. This is called A Wing and a Prayer. It's large, it's 2 feet by 3 feet. And once again, Walter's interest and my interest in the avian world. It's just always fascinating to me to think of how birds can fly, how a wing is constructed. Just how difficult it is actually to be a bird. And I've utilized stencil, as you can see, and intaglio, monotype, photo transfer, and graphite. And then this was out of that show at the Missoula Artist Shop. It's called Nesting. And this is from 2014. It's 20 by 26. Relief print, graphite, photo collage. And I made this after I was teaching at an elementary school, or doing like an artisan residence program at an elementary school all of last year. And I went into this one classroom, and this teacher had been collecting nests for probably 20 years. And so there was like a huge table full of 30 nests, and I was like, oh my gosh, and they were just so fascinating. I just loved it. This piece is called Passage. It's also 20 by 26, and it was out of that same show in October. I've actually been working with dragonfly imagery for several years, And I just really love the elongated form of the body and, everything being symmetrical. And, some of the, there are many cultures where the dragonfly is seen as a pretty important creature, a pretty important symbol, often seen as sinister in many cultures. But for some Native American tribes, the dragonfly represents swiftness and pure water. Then a recent series for me is the Blue Urn series. This was one of the first ones. After my sister died pretty suddenly in July, I started working on some of these pieces, and I was just thinking of the odd notion of how what we have of my sister now is a blue urn, some ashes in a blue urn. And it's an urn that her 7 kids picked out for her, and it's now, kind of the centerpiece of their living room. But I just decided to make some pieces with the urn. And this is 2014, and I'm trying to think of the size of it. It's about 2 feet tall and about, 14 inches wide or something like that. Then I have a couple more blue urns. I have this one right here. And then these 2 urns that I'm going to show you now are collagraphs, and they're part of this new show that's over at the University of Idaho in that print show. And these are 18 by 24, and this is called Blue Urn with Supermoon. And Carol, you were just asking about how I achieved some of this stuff. The blue in all of these is a sheen collé process. So the blue in all these is actually a piece of paper that, and some of you guys know how to do this, so that you ink up the entire plate, and then you place the piece of paper face down on the plate with some adhesive on the back of it. Put the paper over that, run it through the press, and then when you take the paper off, when you pull up this paper, this piece of paper is stuck to it and then has everything printed over the top of it. It's pretty slick. So it's a way to use another color without having a whole nother plate or inking something up separately. You can just, use a piece of decorative paper or tissue paper, whatever. And then the last urn is, I don't think Walter worked with any urns. This one. How come that doesn't want to go? I'm having trouble now. Okay. Floating urn. My sister had a nickname of Toad, and so that's kind of where that comes from. And then Carol, once again, I'm getting some of this from an old-fashioned piece of wallpaper that has this kind of like floral, kind of organic design on it that is really fun to just, put a protective coating of something and then ink it up and run it off.
Did that wallpaper have enough, it had enough texture and stuff to it so when you could ink it?
Uh-huh. Yeah, and those are getting really hard to find. Those are old-fashioned.
Was
It's
it
hard.
flocked?
Was it what?
Flocked?
No, the flocked ones, those velvety ones, just suck up the ink and they just start, because they're so black. I mean, they're fun to use, but you have to be really careful. So, but yeah, it's hard to find those old-fashioned wallpaper books, and I just love to use them. And then I'm going to zone in on the end here. I have a couple more pieces from the current show, that Idaho show. This is Tree of Life. It's another sort of stacked piece. It is a little collograph, and the plate is just like, it's like 10 by 12 or something. It's not very big.
How'd you get to reverse it on the bottom?
scan that. Yeah. So, Carol, you are very observant. And then the next one, the reversal on that one, is the actual plate. So this is called Tumble, also from 2015. This is another subject that I've been working with for several years, is the tumbleweed. It's been kind of hard for me to capture, the true essence of a tumbleweed and to figure out how to present them as well. So I made this other kind of stacked piece. It's another collograph. And I actually constructed the plate. This is the actual plate right here. So it's the reverse of these two. These two prints are taken off of this plate. But what happened is I actually constructed the plate with glue. So I just basically drew with a glue bottle and then sprinkled some carborundum on there to create the lines and everything. And interestingly, as I made more prints and ran it through the press, it just started to flatten so much that pretty soon I didn't have, these weren't raised enough to actually make, to actually be able to read it the way that I wanted to. It was just really smashing down in the press. So, and I just loved the plate, so I just, I knew that I wouldn't be able to print off of it anymore, so I just used the plate in the overall piece. And sometimes when I am doing workshops and stuff and we're learning collograph and people say, geez, I like my plate so much better than the print. And I always say, you know what, the plate is a work of art in itself. Don't be afraid to just use frame the plate. They just take on kind of a rich, really gorgeous quality.
One thing I know Peter's done is with the plate, and in addition, the final one, not to clean it and have that ink still in there in the plate.
Right.
Because the color, but not all inked up and stuff, and that looks really neat.
I know, yeah, when you just leave
I'm sure
it.
you've done that too.
Well, and with that one, I just left it because it had everything, just the way that it was supposed to be. Yes, sorry about the quality of this slide. It's under glass and it's reflective and everything. But this is the most recent piece, and it went to that show in Idaho. This is called Here and Beyond, 2015. It's 2 feet by 3 feet. And it's just another piece, kind of referencing the death of my sister. It speaks about transition and journey. It is mixed media, intaglio relief, photo collage, transparency, and tissue. All right, these last two images that I want to leave you guys with. This one I liked quite a bit, and it is called Missoula from Milwaukee Depot by Walter Hook. It's watercolor and collage. And, he was not afraid to experiment with all these different styles. And, I think it goes without mentioning, because most of you guys know that, I'm just showing two-dimensional work of Walter's, but that he worked in clay and sculpture and created large, public commissions. And so, he was just so versatile and so knowledgeable about various media. And I just applaud his willingness to experiment and coming off with, some really pretty incredible work. He had a definition of art that I think some of you guys have read. I'm just going to read a little part of it. But it says, here's what Walter said: art is the interdependent structural essence of the transitional reality of an integrated world, both physical and psychological. It systemizes form and its postulated paradox, also projected truth, revealing a reciprocal possibility for beauty. Whether it is an optimized abstraction, or a responsive representation, it is a pragmatic, objective portrayal of our subconscious. I think that's pretty good. He was a scholar. And then the last image that I wanted to show is Sky Glow. And wow, just what he's been able to do with illumination there and using kind of a monochromatic color scheme is lovely. Let's see, do we have a date on this? This is a lithograph, so this is part of his printmaking portfolio. And this was just done 2 years before his death in 1987. And then I just want to leave you guys with, some of you have read this, it's just a little quote in the little blurb that was written by Margaret Mudd in here. And she said, when Walter died unexpectedly in 1989, those who knew him and who loved his artistic voice were shattered in many ways. In many ways, he was at the height of his power as an artist. Freer than ever to investigate, he considered no place or object beneath his interest. In an age when process and concept were all the rage and the end of art was being proclaimed by some, he continued to observe the familiar in order to speak about the unseen. The transparency of a poppy's skin, the fire beneath a sun-soaked landscape, the density of a bramblewood spoke less of themselves and more of that exquisite struggle for homeostasis he wrote about. It was there that Walter Hook took us to the profound tension of our irrepressibly valuable condition as human beings. He brought us. How lucky we were to have such a guide. How delightful it is in this volume of extraordinary Hook images to celebrate that journey once again, which is what this event is all about every year. And thank you, Erin, for keeping it going and for keeping the spirit of Walter alive in our community. Thanks for coming, you guys. Yeah, sure.
At the end?
Oh, yeah, go ahead, Carol.
Okay. I have a question that I know you can't answer it right now and stuff, but it's what came into my mind. This was a great show, but watching, you talking about Walter Hook and his eggs and then birds and then Jeff Walker and I know his color palette and stuff. Do you ever think that if you had different teachers, would things be different in your work? Like, what if you had studied with someone who was really strong colors and painting and stuff, or have you, and it didn't make any difference, or?
Right, it doesn't make any difference. Yeah, because some of my other teachers, like in junior high school, like in the late 60s, all the stuff that was happening then, like all the pop art and we were like working with like shaped canvases and these really bold colors and everything. And I've never been very drawn to that. I think my sensibility is just more of a kind of, subtle tones and stuff like that.
The artists that you were drawn to are the ones you were drawn to. And that's
well, the artists I'm drawn to, their work is really different from my own.
Oh, yeah, but I'm just saying it's not I don't know what I'm saying. So what else is new?
Well, and I just applaud, like I was saying before, the people like Walter Hook and the Deweeses and the Audios and the Francis Senskas and who else am I forgetting? The people that have passed away, Freeman Betts and, they all moved to Montana from somewhere else. They were schooled somewhere, except for Walter was born and raised here. And they came here and brought their knowledge with them and helped to set up all these programs and worked as educators. And, I'm just so grateful for that. They really got the ball rolling here in Montana. So.
And Bill Orman.
Yeah, Bill Orman. Mm-hmm. In a different sort of a way. He taught people and inspired people in a really quiet way, not, as a professor. But
Oh, I wouldn't call it quiet. He had a show in a local bank And the people that came in, the customers hated it so much that bank people had to move the show to the bank hall.
I guess if it doesn't stir up some dialogue and a little
Yeah.
controversy, then it might not be as effective of an art piece as it could. Anything else? Any other questions? All right, you guys, thank you so much.
you.
All right. Good.